Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. My name is Keoni and I am your host. So last week I took off from releasing any episodes just because I wanted to take a step back, breathe a little bit, let the creative juices recharge, and see how I can attack episode 11 in different ways than I have in the previous 10 weeks. And you know what? My brother, I hate to admit that he was right, but he would always joke around with me and say that, when you hit season 2, you should do this. And I'm like, is there really a season 2? Because I kind of thought it was all one season, no endless numbers. But, he was right. So I'm not going to tell all my secrets or all my plans just because got to add some mystery to it all. But, I'm very excited for that time off because I don't usually plug my stuff because there's nothing really else I'm working on. This podcast takes a good chunk of my time outside of work. But if you are a fan of DC, if you love Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, all of them, then I took on the challenge before I actually started this podcast to watch all of the DC animated movies ever created. Now, that's a tall task. So I've just broken into maybe like a year, 2 years, 3 years. So if you enjoyed that, go to my website, keoniconlu.com, click blogs, and then click on the DC photo. That will take you to the whole series. Just let me know what you think. Even if I'm wrong, even if you think, I don't agree with this, totally fine. But I just thought I should let everyone know that it's that's going to be an ongoing project, as even as of, let's say, 5 years ago. DC, Warner Brothers, they pumped out a lot of movies, and I absolutely loved those DC anime movies just because the storylines they're able to tell without any restrictions as far as actors, live actions with actors and scheduling and all this and this and this. So, currently I think I just finished 2013, so, starting to hit that, slide towards the new decade. But yeah, check it out. I released that on Saturday instead of the episode, so that was my substitute. And if you are watching this interview episode, if you're watching this episode over YouTube, if you see a little bit of a dark spot over my right eye, it is because this last week and some change, I have been dealing with a sty. It's not the funnest thing or the sexiest thing to talk about, but I want everyone to know that if you are watching this through YouTube, I'm okay. It looks bigger during the interview with Chloe just because even 3 days ago, I approached this kind of treatment differently. So it's much better. It's down, but still there. So yeah, I'm okay. So I hope it's not too distracting. I hope it doesn't gross you out. So, but if you're listening to this episode through Spotify or iTunes, you guys are good. Solid. And, I got this great haircut. Again, if you're listening, because I apologize, you can't really see it. But I got the haircut at this new barbershop called The Barbers, oddly enough, located on Milliken Way. And it was a new experience for me just because I got used to going to my usual haircut place and paying below the $20 mark. But I had the thought of, let's try something new, A. B, your life is getting a little more comfortable as you're working more and more in the workforce. So let's see if you can upgrade the cost in your haircuts. So, I went to the barbers and I got a haircut. I got this haircut from a wonderful woman named Melvy, Melvy, early 60s Hispanic woman, and she told me we opened up, we connected, and made the haircut more memorable. Just because she told me how she's feeling about all this COVID and how her family's doing, and that her daughter is a teacher, and she even told me she told me some positive, so it wasn't all negative. She showed me photos from her 4th of July weekend, and she went to Crater Lake and how beautiful and blue the lake looked. So, it was an absolute blast getting to know her and getting to hear about her story. So I ended up tipping her the most I've ever tipped a barber. You know, I will humbly say that I am not a great tipper. Something I'm working on. So people that I know in the customer service that are listening, I apologize. I'm working on it. So yeah, great customer service. I love to provide that to people, and I love to receive it. Obviously, so I just want to recognize her. So if you guys are in gals need a haircut, go to Milliken Way in Beaverton, Oregon. Go to the barber. Ask for Melvy, Melvy. Fantastic lady. So going back to why you're here today, the episode today features my best friend Chloe Shaughnessy. You know, I met her in 2014, and how we met was very millennial. It was very, yeah, 21st century. It was a very 21st century. You know, I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys, but you know, we met, and then it's not until like I want to say maybe 2 years later or something like that, where we actually sat next to each other in the University of Oregon Journalism and Communications classroom, started talking. Next thing you know, we're best friends, and you know, we tell each other. Even at the end of the interview, when the camera was turned off, I told her like, "Oh, I'll let you go finish your day out. I love you. Take care." And you know, I don't feel like I'd say that enough to some people, and there are some people I say that almost too much to. So, you know, it's just part of me being vocal about my emotions. So I'm trying to work on that. Without further ado, let's dive in to the conversation, the chat that I had with Chloe Marie Shaughnessy. Very happy and very excited. I get to talk with my great friend Chloe Marie Shaughnessy. You know, I always think of your name like one of those roller coasters going up and down, up and down.
Yeah, my parents are really great at rhyming, experts.
Yeah. How's the family doing, by the way, in back in Eugene?
They're okay. I think they're holding, they're kind of just like holding tight,
Yeah.
bunkering down for all of the shelter in place kind of stuff. But like, I know that's not like an actual order down there, but like my family is like very cautious. And so they're just kind of like laying low.
Yeah. Yeah. And then brother wise, I know he graduated, was it is he still in college or did he graduate already?
No, he has kind of a tumultuous relationship with school. He's really, really smart, but he hates being told what to do. So he's not he's not super into like school and that kind of stuff. I think he has on and off started pursuing like accreditations for like building inspectors and like trying to like get into like a higher paying position in the field that he's in now. Um and so I think that's like schooling wise kind of where he's at, but he's like he's not he's not cut out for the college life. At least he thinks so. I think he is, but like he just doesn't feel
Yeah.
the need to go, you know.
Yeah. And you think that, you know, you're the older sibling. I know for my situation when I was with my brother and I was younger brother, he'd always push me to go do the college thing. Go be, you know, extroverted, go talk to people, go get drunk responsibly. But I think it's just for the younger generation now. You think that they just want to go to college just to drink, not really study. That's the impression I was getting as I was getting older and older and older and so much older.
Yeah, I don't know. My brother's just like I said, he's really smart, but he's also really, really stubborn. And
Hmm.
like he yeah, really doesn't like to be told what to do. And I think things like, and this is kind of like, it's great that your brother could influence your decisions and like could help you like get to college, but for my brother, if I tell him to do anything, he would do the opposite or just like refuse to like
Yeah.
make any moves. So I think as we've gotten older, I've just realized how incredibly different we are and how different we're motivated. And
Mm.
for him, it's like he has to want it, and then like once he wants it you can encourage him, but you can't force him to like make a choice. And so I'm trying to
Yeah.
respect that, you know.
I would say to some degree. I mean, you're also kind of, not to put this in an insult, but like you can be a little stubborn sometimes. You can be a little hard to motivate.
I mean, whatever do you mean?
I guess not like stubborn. I guess it should be you don't like being told what to do. That I do remember you being a little bit against, because I can't remember. I do remember a situation where, oh, I think Mackenzie Hanley was like having a party or something like that, or we're gonna go to a bar, and then I was like, "Oh, Chloe, I thought you don't drink," and then you're like, "Don't tell me what I can and cannot do." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds all right."
I mean, listen, I think there's a difference between I think there's a lot of things that's different there, like
Hmm.
especially between like my brother and I. It's like absolutely no one can sway his decision making. I think while you're my friend, you are also a male, and I think I'm often very sensitive to like male presences trying to like dominate my decisions. Um, and so it's like, while your question was valid, like in that situation, I think that I have a much more intense, like knee jerk reaction to like the male species trying to control what I can and cannot do. So I it's not your fault. It just kind of like that's like my own bias. Like I just don't take kindly to I think that. And so
Now, would you say that's something that you developed as you got older, or is that something that kind of got started in the childhood home? That kind of like knee-jerk reaction you just mentioned.
I mean probably both. I mean, I think, it probably starts when you're young, and then like certain biases are fortified by like different people's actions as you like get older. And
Yeah.
so I mean, and I think it's just such an incredible time to, I think, be a woman. I think that we've really pushed a lot of boundaries on like what we can and can't do, like how we should and shouldn't look, like who we can and can't love. Like, I think, God, thank God for Gen Zs and like, really kind of like pushing the envelope there. But I think that, um, I try to like frame it as like I am an I'm a woman who has the choice to make any choice that I want. And while maybe in this particular scenario that was an overreaction, like I still hold true that like I don't think any man should try and dictate any woman's like decisions or life choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And before we started this podcast, we talked a little bit about what's going on in the world right now with Black Lives Matters movement and all of the ugliness coming to the surface. And all that ugliness, there's some progress I see being made. I see in the sports world kind of term, I see the NFL teams changing names, and I see all this progress towards good. Now, when I think about you and how you wanted to assert yourself in a male dominant field as far as like journalism and communications, you've done so many great things as far as, just being a jump in the radio station, and then now where you are with work, which we'll get to later. But you're an encouraging story. You're a motivating story, Chloe Shaughnessy.
Thanks. Yeah, that's so nice. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe this is another similarity for my brother and I, but once I make up my mind to do something, I like figure it out. And
Yeah.
I think I will acknowledge that like I do have some privilege in that space where like I think I've been given a lot of opportunities and like have just said yes. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think that a lot of it is like I just knew I wanted to and I thought I could. And so I did.
Yeah. Where would you say you got that mindset from? Was that like a mom or dad or grandparent? That drivenness, that drive.
I I don't know. I mean, I don't think like a person per se gave it to me. I think if anything, it would have been like my best friend growing up. Like, I think her family had a really profound influence on me since I like didn't spend a ton of time around my own family.
Hmm.
Um, but I like her mom is like the epitome of like confident and just like instilled that so hard into like all of her children. I think like symbiotically, like just like being around them, it's something that like you pick up on. Like if you're told, it's like, I don't know, it's like that theory where if you're told you are something enough times, you start to believe it.
Hmm.
And I think that often that example is used in a negative context, but I
Yep.
think it's also true in a positive way, where like if somebody constantly tells you like, wow, you're so smart, like wow, you're so capable, like you're so driven, you're so resilient, like you start to really believe that about those things. I think once you believe those things about yourself, like you embody them to the fullest extent.
Yeah. No, and I totally am trying to adapt that mindset of, repeatedly tell myself it's gonna be a great day, even though like I'm dragging myself out of bed and I just want to take a nap again. But
I
the
mean,
positive
yeah,
thinking.
narratives. The narratives we tell ourselves are so powerful. And like just because you're good at like one narrative in your life doesn't mean you're great at all narratives in your life, right? There are
Yeah.
like there's a whole book of narratives that like is you,
Yeah.
but this one narrative in particular has served me really well. So I'll take it.
Do you still talk to that childhood friend? Is it Athena or someone else?
Yeah,
Is it-
we honestly had a bit of a falling out for reasons I don't particularly want to go into right
Sure,
now.
sure.
Um, but I think that the basis of it is I think that our lives just went in really different paths.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like that's often hard to reconcile when you're so close to somebody. Like I think there's a lot of pain that comes from that, and often people don't deal with pain in very graceful ways.
Yeah,
Um, and so
which is unfortunate, and
yeah,
it's also just part of life. I mean, you and I consider ourselves like best friends in college, and we haven't talked that much, but I think the true telltale sign of like a strong friendship bond is when we can just pick things up right there. As soon as we see each other on webcam, we're like, oh my God, remember that one time yesterday? And then I just feel like, it just feels like, we haven't missed a beat.
yeah, I think I would agree. I have certain friends that lots and lots and lots of time can pass, and like when we do catch up, it's like we just hung out yesterday.
Yeah.
And I do acknowledge that some relationships take more effort than that, and they should.
Hmm.
But I think the people who are going to stick around the longest are going to be okay with that. They're going to be okay and like acknowledge that like life is like that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. At first I was, oh, I want to see Chloe, a little try to, you know, make things happen when sometimes it's too much out of the realm of probability. And then, it's just now I'm just accepting the fact that things will come when they come. And if it happens, it happens. But if I can't force things, because you're a busy woman, I'm a busy guy. We're, you know, when our railroads collide in a very dark imagery I'm about to paint, it'll it'll happen.
Yeah, I just think that like, that the absence of communication does not mean the lack of um connection. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense, but like just because I don't talk to somebody doesn't mean that that like friendship isn't there.
Yeah. And
So
I'm not to damper you, but sometimes texting is not something you're very much on top of, which is again totally fine because I know how busy you are. But it's like for me, it's like I at least sent it out. She knows that I'm thinking about her in this moment. Good. I'll go live my life for now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like fully acknowledge I am the world's worst texter. I just like, and I don't know if this is just like a me thing or if it's like I would love to see a study and see if like other people who work in social media are like this, but like by the time I'm done with my day, like I will have like back to back to back to back to back meetings, or I will
Mhm.
like be looking at my computer like all day, or I will be on my phone like working doing this stuff. Like by the time I'm done with the day, the last thing I want to do is like look at another screen or like touch another device.
Yeah.
So often it's like I'm too busy during the day to like respond to things because I'm working, and then by the time I'm done, I just don't have any energy left to like respond to things. I know that's not an excuse, but like that's often where I'm at when I'm like, I see that you have said something, I just do not have the energy to like respond in a way that's meaningful, because I also
Yeah.
don't want to just be like, okay, great, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
Like
The
I
yeah.
hate that too. So it's like it's this like catch 22 where I'm like, I don't have enough energy because I'm tired, but I want to give it the energy it deserves.
Yeah.
So
And your job, again, you're with screens all day, whether it's computer or phones, and then you just want to disconnect. How much of that balancing act do you have when it comes to being with technology all day and then wanting to be outdoors and explore? I mean, I granted you're still in lockdown, COVID, and all that, but how much of that urgency to be on a hike is tempered down when you're looking at screens all day?
I mean, I think the screens like fuel the desire, right? Like I will go outside for a long walk at the end of the day, even if I can't like get a hike in.
Mm,
Or I will go outside and work out in my backyard, or I will plan a really long like hike on the weekend. Because that's my favorite thing, to just like go outside, blast some music on a drive somewhere, spend a lot of time outdoors, like hiking, just being like in nature, and then coming back, eating a burger and beer, and like, like watching some Netflix and falling asleep. And like in nowhere in that realm am I like on my phone needing to like text and be around, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's like maybe this is just my core personality, but I prefer to not be like on my phone.
Yeah, and that's that kind of disconnect. That's pretty refreshing, especially nowadays where technology is everywhere. I mean, we're using it right now to talk. And
Hmm.
what would you say when you do go on those long drives out to the country, blasting music? What does that do to your mental health, as far as after putting in all that mental power into social media or just being a community manager and work in general?
I mean, I think that often the way that our line of work like happens is it's a lot of like quick pivots. It's
Hmm.
like you're doing something and you have to like stop and put a fire out over here, or you have to like stop and do this or answer this question. And I think often it just feels like I'm spinning in circles all day,
Yeah.
that there's just like not a real linear line of like thought progression from start to finish. And what I love about like driving somewhere or like going on a hike is that like you complete a task from start to finish. You have the room and capability to like really think. I think that I miss that, just like having the space to like be with my thoughts and like not be like constantly interrupted.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, God, this is like something that I feel really silly saying as somebody who does work in social media, but like I hate the effect that people use the platform for validation. Like I don't think that people should be looking to like Instagram or Facebook or whatever just to get like their self-confidence through like likes and comments, and like because I feel like that's like the junk food of like validation, right? It's easiest, the quickest, and like the least healthy. But I
Yeah.
think when you go and accomplish a task, like going out and doing a really hard hike, or like going out and having a face to face, now with face masks, but like,
Yeah.
whatever, like conversation, like with a real human, like that level of connectivity and validation and like self fulfillment is so much richer and more meaningful than like anything we can do online, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. Um, and it's like, in a world where like we are in COVID and like we can't do those things necessarily all the time, like I 100% appreciate that like social media and all these different platforms have given us a place to find connectivity where other bits have been taken away. But I think if that's the only form of connectivity and validation that you're getting, like you're setting yourself up for not a good time.
Yeah. I mean, when you were talking just now, it made me think of a movie called what is it? Ingrid Goes West with Aubrey Plaza and Ice Cube's son, and she, there's not to go in detail about the plot. Basically, she follows this influencer, across the country because she wants to be like the influencer because her life is so bad, and she is driven by seeing that influencer get all these likes, get all these like posts, and then she actually copies all those posts, and it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty dark because it's actually true that some people can get to that extent. So kudos to you, Aubrey Plaza, be able to pull that pull that one off pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, that's internet culture at its finest.
Mm.
I mean, not to like further, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting really negative about it, but like, I mean, think about TikTok as a platform. The whole premise is that there's like a trend that you hop
Hmm.
on and you recreate it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it, it's an interesting thing to observe. And like in another life, I would love to go back and like study this as like a psychologist and like figure out sort of like the long-term effects of social media on our brains, because I think it would be pretty illuminating.
Yes, yes, and I get that might be something for future Chloe, as we probably need to gather more info, or we probably could get info on that now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Sure.
sure I'm not the only person to be asking this question, and I'm sure that some studies already exist.
Hmm.
Um, but, I think as technologies evolve, those kinds of questions will just need to be asked
Yeah,
again
yeah,
and again.
yeah. So I did have an agenda of things I wanted to talk with you, which I love this. I love going off into little banters and just going off little branching points.
Hmm.
So when I tell people that I know you, I absolutely love how we met, and I absolutely love our story.
Yeah.
You want to tell it?
I mean, sure. I'll tell it from my perspective, and
Okay.
you can tell it from yours if I get anything wrong. Um, I had just broken up with someone I was dating for around like 2 years, and one of my friends, I was like sitting on a couch, and she was just like, have you heard of this thing called Tinder? Like, you should get on it and like just go out on a couple of dates and like, just like get back out there, like just go talk to people. And I was like, yeah, yeah, you're right. So made a profile, and I think you were like one of my first matches or something like that. And so we decided to meet at a Starbucks, and we went on a date, and like you're really nice, but like I feel like I was just too fresh from what I had just like gone through. I was like, you know what, he's a nice guy, but like I just like I'm not ready. Like I'm not ready for this. And so I think we had tried to talk a little bit more, but like I was just like not in the right mental space for that. And so like we kind of stopped talking for a bit. And then like I transferred from like a community college to the U of O, and like we were both transfer students in the journalism program. So we ended up in like all of the same classes. It was like we were all in all the transfer seminars and in
Yeah.
all of the same like J school courses and all of that jazz. And I was just like, all right, like my friend is back. Like we are here to hang out. And so yeah, and then we're really close and like spent a lot of time together, and yeah, that
it, was,
that was it.
it was absolutely great. Yeah, that's pretty much how I summed it up too. But just I wanted to meet more people. I wanted to explore Eugene and see like, oh, what kind of people can I meet from these areas? And I had the day with you, and I just remember some time passed. Yeah, and then we both ended up in the same J school classroom, and then I was like, holy crap! Oh, hey! And then I think I'm not sure if I was coming off a relationship at that time, or I was still, I was single for a long periods of times. It's only not just, it's only recently where like my single period has been like shorter and shorter and shorter. But
Mm.
I just knew this. I just knew I just wanted to talk to people, so I figured journalism was a great place for me to get into, and I'm very happy that we got to go on this journey together, and we made some pretty interesting videos for school.
Yeah, yeah. The J school was a hoot. Honestly, a lot of it feels like a blur.
Mhm.
Like I feel like I was just like not sleeping and eating like a regular human should. So I feel like it's had a profound effect on my memory.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, it was good. I love that program. I'm
yeah.
glad that that was where I decided to land. So
How did you find that program, or what made you want to go into that field?
I was originally a psych major. Um, and really at the end of the day, I just love human behavior. But I also recognize that I'm extremely empathetic, and that being a psychologist or a counselor, as I was like kind of gearing up to be, was going to be too emotionally taxing for me. It
Mm,
was going to be something that like I would have a really hard time like keeping my own mental health up with. And so I decided to pivot and I went into PR, which in my mind felt like a great way to help people, but on like a broader scale, like helping companies like talk about what they're good about and like connect others and all of that jazz. So that was the thought. And then I just loved all the programs and like all the courses, and um, it just felt like the right fit.
now, I have a feeling that some of these major courses like sociology, psychology, journalism, or geology for some odd reason, I feel like some of them tend to intertwine. Some of them tend to like overlap with each other because with the journalism, and PR, you are sort of studying how people react to, let's say, an ad you're making for a company. What was your experience been in the professional field of, you know, I'm not PRing and community manager, would that still kind of coincide with each other?
What I do now is probably a lot more marketing.
Okay.
I mean, it's like a little bit of PR, but like to your point, all of these things kind of blend together, at least in my mind. Um, but I think technically, like my field would be marketing.
Mm.
Um,
Still studying some way of people's interpretations of ads and whatnot and how you presented this company.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, everything we do is about people, at least in my current role. It's about telling people stories, it's
Mhm.
about supporting people, it's about connecting people, it's about understanding people so that you know how to say what you're trying to say to them. And I think that's the through line, I think, through a lot of professions, right? It's just people. I mean, anywhere from like psychology to marketing to blanking on another profession, like even like the service industry or banking, like you're dealing with people's money, like that the ability to understand humans and like help them achieve what they're looking to do is like I think the root of pretty much everything that drives our economy. So
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we've
yeah,
seen it with, the lockdowns, early stages of the COVID lockdowns where there was no one out and about, no shops were getting any service in any businesses, and now the world's opening back up, but now these big companies are still filing for bankruptcy because I don't know, maybe they just didn't break even last month. But yeah, they didn't have the people, and it's all about the people.
yeah,
Woo,
yeah,
people.
it's an interesting spot. I
Yeah.
think that I don't know. I feel like I wish there was, and I think there is like a master's program at the U of O that encompasses like PR, journalism, and marketing or something like that. It's like
Hmm.
it's like the big. Do you remember Ryan Hagan? I think he was one of our TAs one time.
Was it in I think so. Yeah, I kind of remember him. Yeah.
He was he played for the Ducks at one point, and he like came back and he was getting like his masters or something like that. But he was doing like a 3 level one where you got all three in one program.
Hmm.
And I think there's a reason why that program exists, right? Because like
Yeah.
those things all play really well together
Are you
in my
saying
mind.
are you saying you want to go back to school together? That was the most cringiest face I've seen you make. You're like, "Ugh, I'm
I
not saying
mean,
that."
if I go back to school, I'm doing it abroad.
Yeah,
Like it's
this
not
you
gonna. I'm
don't.
not going back to the U of O.
No.
As much as I loved my experience there,
Yeah,
um, I lived too much of my life in that space. So
yeah. How was that, by the way? Going living in Eugene, going to school, high school in Eugene, and then going to college in Eugene. How that's got to be exhausting.
yeah, I mean, I think when I finally, I I think that there was a lot of growth that happened in my life between the ages of like 17 and like 25. I think I learned a lot about myself. One of which is that I I need change, and I think like how important change is in like everybody's life. Like I think there's something to be said about having a community and like being around your people, like and being able to like develop deep roots, right? But I think there's also something to be said about leaving your bubble to like learn more about yourself. Like there's a reason the hero's journey is like the greatest like narrative arc of all time, right? And the foundation of that is leaving home, the call to adventure, right? um and I think that I spent honestly like a little too long like being there, but I think there were a lot of just like low barrier to entry choices that
Mhm.
made it really easy for me to stay. Like for community college, like it was really easy because I could like live at home and like get my schooling like paid for through grants and like all that kind of stuff for my first 2 years at a community college. And then like U of O is like an easy transfer school from that community college. They set it up to be a pipeline, right? It like
Yeah.
makes the most sense. Um, and then from there, it was just kind of like random because I only applied for one job like right for graduation, and then I got it. um, and so like I wasn't planning on staying, but I think when you are a recent college graduate from a journalism program and you're told over and over again like jobs are going to be tight, like jobs are hard to find, like if when you get one, the last thing you want to do is turn it down. So um and not that I'm not grateful for that experience, but like in an ideal world I would have found that job elsewhere and like
Yeah.
moved somewhere else sooner,
Yeah.
right?
I get that. And I'm just now getting in, finally using my degree after what, 4 years, 3 years removed from college. So, I mean, I was super happy for you when I heard that you got this position. Granted, it was still in Eugene, but, you still got to use your degree right off the bat. And that was, I finally got that feeling when, not this current job, but the last job I was at, where I got to be on work their social media. And, again, it's not what I got my degree in, but it's still related to that. I was like, sweet,
Right.
I could use this to some degree, but can I actually do it proficiently? Can I actually
Yeah.
take the non-educational experiences I've gotten and apply it to this big company? Yeah, there's failures and successes. That's
Right.
how life is, though.
Yeah. I think it's like I think that your degree probably helped in other ways than the other jobs you were doing, but I think there's like a different like satisfaction that comes from like really kind of doing like what you were hoping to do, you
Yeah.
know?
And even leaving college, I was like, I wanted to be a broadcaster, but I'm having a lot more fun doing this podcast, talking with yourself or people like yourself that have interesting stories and trying to get them to the surface. Because Is this your first time on a podcast? I don't believe so. I believe you've been on maybe a couple.
I have been on the back end of a lot of podcasts, like the editing and like post production stuff and like the setup, but
Mhm.
I've never been interviewed before. So
See,
I
this is
normally do the interviewing.
ah, this is the fun part about it too, because like, yeah, a bunch of the people I've talked to, they've never been on podcasts. They're fans though, but getting to get them to be a guest, they're like, I see a little spark of enjoyment in their eyes or in their words. I'm just like, ah, my heart's full. I did
That's
good.
good. Yeah. And it's a win-win, right? Because like you're enjoying it, they're enjoying it. It's just, there's no real agenda. I mean, there's some outline, but like, it's
Yeah.
just questions. You're just having a conversation.
Yeah. And so during your time as the back end of the podcast sceneries, what would you recommend to someone like myself trying to get this going in full steam?
I think I think having sort of like an a through line of your podcast that like differentiates you, because I think that there has to be a thing that like draws people in, right?
Mhm.
Other than just like knowing some of the people who are in the podcast. Well, I guess wait, like let me ask you this: what do you want to achieve with this podcast? You just want to keep it as like a hobby? Like, do you want it to get bigger? Like, do you want like to become like famous for like like what? It depends on what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I asked myself too. Like, what's my end goal with this? At first it was a hobby. At first it was just a passion project, something to help get myself over a breakup, and then it just kind of turned into a fun thing that's kind of involving my family too, like my brother and my dad. They're super excited about it. They always give me these random ideas. It's like, oh, you should do this, you should do this. I'm like, I've never seen you this excited about something I've done in my whole life, so it's a good feeling there. I would like to, you know, get some bigger get not to say like the people I've talked to so far, and you're clean yourself. Not to say they're not bigger, but like more high profile names. So
Hmm.
I got some ideas, and I'm not going to reveal them because that's just not fun. Yeah, I have some surprise in life. So that's kind of where I want to trying to push it towards. Just like I can have a conversation with friends or people I have some connection with. Well, how can I take that and talk to people I don't have a connection with? How can I take that and just try to create a connection with someone? So it's more of a tool also, as well as just helping with my you know mental strength and mental therapy type, just to open up and connect.
Yeah.
It's kind of where I'm going.
No, I think that that's great, and I think that I would identify like it doesn't need to be specific, but like the broad topic that you want all of these things to focus around, whether it be like career or mental health or like, life, the hero's journey, like, whatever it may be, and like carve out that space for yourself to be the authority on that thing.
Hmm.
And then as you identify other people who you like are bigger names and like want to come on the show, that's what you pitch. You're like, I'm a podcast that talks about like the intersectionality of millennials and COVID or millennials and mental health or whatever it may be. And be
Hmm.
like, and I think that you would have something really profound to say about that. Like, is there some time like that would work for me to just chat with you about your expertise in XYZ or like your experience with da da da.
Okay.
Um, I think having a really clear like reason why you want them to be a part of what you're doing makes it really easy for them to decide whether or not it's a good fit for them.
Yeah, because there was one company I approached to do the podcast, and at first it was a little bit of a hard sell because they're just trying to see if it would be beneficial to them to take time out of their day. And so I'm like, okay, well, I think I love what you guys are doing for the Filipino community. I want to talk to you about that, and the story behind all you guys coming together and doing what you're doing. I think that's very interesting too. So yeah, I think if I carved out a little more of a detailed pitch,
think that might be
Yeah.
pretty beneficial.
Well, and I think it's kind of hard too, because we think about some of like the big name podcasters, right?
Hmm.
Like Joe Rogan or, you know, like armchair expert, like Dax Shepard. Their thing is that they're famous. They're like, I'm
Yeah.
a famous person. Like, you
Yeah.
want to talk to me, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But with people who maybe are coming from the other end of it, it's like you almost have to like work even harder to like differentiate yourself and be like, this is why, you know, like this is why I'm here and this is why you should listen to what I have to say, which
Yeah.
is kind of a weird space. Like the one podcast I worked on in Portland, it was a black gay man and a Asian woman, and a lot of what they talked about was the intersectionality of their lives, and they
Hmm.
spoke really candidly about their experiences as those kinds of people in Portland, you
Hmm.
know, and like how their cultural identities and the things that make them them are affecting their lives and the people around them, like in, like, let's call a spade, like a predominantly white city,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I was about to mention that, but
Yeah, and so I think that like that's like a really contextual example of like something that they can really own, really speak to, and then when they brought people on, they knew that like that was the kind of like topic that they were going to like discuss.
yeah.
um yeah, is that helpful?
No, it is. It is. It is. I'm just
Okay.
like, as you're talking and I'm like absorbing what you're listening to, I'm just trying to think of how I can, you talked about earlier, life's all about pivots. I was just like, how can I pivot that? Obviously I don't have that's a pretty strong pitch. Gay
Do
black
you
man
want
and Asian. So like,
do you
oh
want my
wow.
$1 million idea? Do you want what I would give to you?
Sure.
I think you should talk about the like career and like transition and like chasing your dreams. I think especially now a podcast that talks about the experience of degree to career to, you know, chasing your dream, whether it be like, hey, I went to college, I did this thing, and then I actually like I fucking hated it. So like I dropped out and now I'm a chef and I like, you know, I'm doing this, or
Yeah.
hey, I'm a recent graduate and like what the hell do I do if finding a job in COVID? Like
Yeah.
I think that like that would be something that people would find incredibly useful, especially if you're connecting with people who are like have made it through and have like say, you know,
Mhm.
sage quote unquote like words of advice.
Hmm. Yeah, because like my last guest, he is he's one out of five siblings, and all four of them graduated college, and he didn't graduate college, and
Right.
that right there, I was just like, ooh, that's a nugget. That's something I can grow off. That's something I can kind of dive into a little bit more, and I did. It was that's actually kind of been the better definition of this podcast mission statement, I guess, the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Just because looking at the topic she has sent you, yeah, it's basically your LinkedIn profile and just trying to figure out what kind of experiences you got from each job and how it got to where you are today. So look at
Yeah.
that. Friendship still stays strong.
I feel like people's career trajectories are almost as interesting as like their dating life sometimes.
Really.
It's just like you're like, how the hell did you end up here? Or like,
Yeah.
wow, that was like a really interesting stint there. Like, what did you learn about yourself, like being
Yeah.
a part of this? Or, you know, like what would you like warn other people about this thing, you know, or whatever it may be.
Now, did you continue on with the Tindering and all those dating apps? Let's say like maybe more recently, because obviously trying to connect with people, it's kind of hard to do that person to person. And have you been trying those out?
I mean, I think that like I have a long standing history of avoidance when it comes to dating. I just like I don't know. I often just find like better ways to spend my time for me personally.
Hmm.
And I've had things like I've like seen,
Flings, yeah.
yeah, I've had like stints of time with people. And yeah, like I've had like I was really into like my best friend for a while, and like didn't tell him for a really long time. So like I feel like the dating on apps was very like half-hearted.
Hmm.
Like it was just kind of like I was like, yeah, I'm just doing this because I feel like I should, not
Yeah,
because I like want to.
yeah.
Um, but I'm like queen of first dates. I am gonna write like a coffee table book, um, of which the chapters would be thus far two guys, one first date, um, rape jokes, tarot cards, um, social media never sleeps, and alpha males. So it's been great. Um, I have recently, odd enough, like started seeing ish someone. We haven't like quite figured out what is like going on.
Sure, yeah. Just
Um,
still checking the waters.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's more about like I just need to process like how I feel and like what I want.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's been fun so far. And that was like a Hinge thing. So like,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
I started using that too.
yeah. No,
Oh man.
not sponsored, but
Not at all. Of course not.
no,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, no, it's. I think you. I'm trying to be more picky about my partners going forward, just because, the last two were kind of, you know me. I can sometimes follow my heart a little too strong. So, they kind of led me into those places where, let's say, those most partners I selected, they weren't there yet, and maybe I just pushed a little too hard or just pushed in the wrong directions. And now going forward, it's just like I think I'm gonna really be selective about this process because I, it. My time is getting more precious, especially with, me getting busy with this podcast and then trying to write some stuff. I write blog posts, so there you go. Here's my plug for myself. Um, so yeah, it's like, I need to find someone that can understand that I'm busy and understand that I need to do things myself, and I need to be myself more than just with myself with you. And yeah, so I started using the dating apps again. And for yourself, when you use the Tinder, does some
First of all,
remnants
I love that you call it the Tinder. Like,
or Tindering?
yeah, that makes me laugh. The Tinder. It's like when people call it the Facebook.
To some degree, when I use the Tinder, I kind of think about our story and how, like, if this doesn't work out, could we still become friends, and could we, still become best friends? And I'm always trying to
Yeah.
find that way to turn it into that. For you, do you still have that at all somewhere in the back of your mind? Like, could this become a friendship if this doesn't work out?
I think I don't know. It's been interesting because like one of the there was one guy I talked to for like years, and we were so like it was like never very clear like what was going on, but like we were talking for like such a long time, and like we would go on trips together and go camping together and just like all
Yeah.
this random stuff. And so that was like it was so weird and ambiguous that it's like we were friends question mark, like it was just like kind of a weird thing, like it was never really like defined.
Hmm.
But then with like all of these like first dates, it's like the reason it's only a first date is because like I don't want to hang out with them ever again. So
Oh.
it's like it's like a no, like it's like a hard it's gonna be a no for me, dog, like channeling my inner like Randy Jackson. um but I think that there have been other times where like I dated somebody who was like friends of a friend, and like we're still friends. Like every time like I'm in town, like we'll hang out and grab coffee. Like so I think it's possible. It just kind of like depends on the person. And I don't
Yeah.
know if necessarily like dating apps for me are like the right place to find like that friendship. I feel like
Sure,
you're just
sure.
you're a diamond in the rough, my friend. But like I think a lot of other people, it's like they're there for a reason, and if like
Sure.
you're not going to provide that space for them, like they're not into it, and like
Yeah,
vice versa. It's like, you know,
yeah.
it's just weird when you go into it with like those expectations. And I think candidly, had we not had all those J school classes together, I don't know if we would have been friends either. So like
So
we
when you
should just
say,
thank the universe for that. So
thank you, thank you. So
yeah, yeah.
when you mentioned earlier queen of first dates, basically, do you give them like the lemon law? It's like you have like 10 minutes to capturize my attention, and if it doesn't work out, I'm out.
I have never heard that before.
It's like
So
it's a car term
no.
also.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, no, never. I don't. I think that for me, it kind of goes one of two ways. Either I show up and like I can tell pretty immediately that I'm like pretty physically attracted to somebody, and then I get like super nervous. I can't breathe. My palms are sweaty, you know, mom spaghetti, the whole Eminem thing. Um, and then like I just like I can't be myself. And
Yeah,
like that sucks. Like you don't want to like be like that around people, but I
yeah.
think often when you aren't yourself, people pick up on that, and they think something weird is happening, and like so that's the part where it's like it's a first date only because like they're not interested. And that
Mm.
could be for a variety of reasons, but I often attribute it to like I was so nervous that I seemed like a psycho or like it goes the other way and like I'm not interested, or I'm not interested, and I'm myself and I can like relax, and like I kind of like probably like within an hour of like hanging out with somebody, like I can tell whether or not I'm like physically attracted and like would like to like, you know, see where it goes. And at that point I feel like because I am just being like wholeheartedly myself,
Mhm.
people are like really into that. They're like, oh my god, she's so just relaxed and nice and funny, or you know, whatever.
Yeah.
um but then it's like it's not reciprocated, so I often find myself like in two like no fly zones, but in like different directions. um but I think when you find the middle ground
Mhm.
and it makes sense, like that's when you're like, all right, like this makes sense. But I think often you have to suss out and kind of weed out all of these other things, especially with online dating,
Mhm.
before you can find the middle ground.
How exhausting is that mentally to try to always be in two separate areas and not have a middle right at the get-go?
Oh Lord, yeah. No, I mean, a full disclosure, I've been in therapy now for like a couple of months, and like this very topic gets talked about a lot. Like and I think that, you know, like part of it is my shit, part of it's their shit. We all have shit we bring to the table.
Mhm.
um but you know, I think that the more aware of these things we become for ourselves and our own patterns, the easier it is to identify and pivot, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, see
Yeah.
like kind of like where it goes from there.
And so you were actually, I believe you were one of the first non-family members I told that I was, seeing a therapist and trying to, work on myself following a breakup from a relationship from college. And
Mm-hmm.
you told me that you saw a therapist for a little bit too, at like when you were younger, and then you went back, and now you just told me that you're, 2 months or a couple months into another stint with a therapist. What is how would you what would you tell people that have this negative connotation towards therapy, to tell them that, it's actually very helpful?
I mean, if I'm like kind of reading the room based on what people tell me sometimes, is like they feel like psychiatrists are or psychologists are like invasive, or they are, you know, like full of crap or whatever it may be, or like it's not a real science, or the, you know, like all these other things. Like that all just kind of feel like cop outs for basically, I think what the through line there is like they're not ready to deal with their own shit. And
Mhm.
like, that's fine. I think that that's a choice each person needs to make. And I would say that like if you're not ready to like do the work, don't go. Like
Yeah.
don't waste your time. Like cuz it only works if you're willing to put in the work to make it work.
Yeah. Because I know, like, once the experience from that college relationship was over, I was completely moved on. I felt better. Then I just stopped seeing the therapist, and then now, like, times where, like, I was dealing with this last breakup, I was like, I kind of wish I still saw him, but I stopped seeing him because, like, I didn't know what else to work on, and I didn't want to, like, waste his time and just talk about, I'm just hanging out, really, just not doing much. It's true that you need to. It's like school. You gotta be able, yeah, you gotta do your homework. You gotta come prepared to work, because if you just come there and sit with no pencil, no paper, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, and let's the reality of the situation is like I'm really lucky cuz my insurance is like really great. Um but in actuality for a lot of people there's a barrier to entry in both like finding somebody that works for you, like it's cost, like it's fairly expensive, like, and not to mention like there's often a barrier, especially for low income people, like to getting there, like often like even getting there physically is like an issue, right?
Mhm.
And I think that honestly, like it sucks, but maybe one of the like silver linings of COVID for me personally is like all of these doctors are now doing it via webcam. You know,
Yes,
like you can
yes.
have all of your sessions from the comfort of your home. And like it's really hard to come up with an excuse to not do it when literally you just have to like open up your computer and like sign on, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and yeah, you know, there's a podcaster that basically got me inspired to do this. He preaches mental health, and he preaches, gosh, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's like, doctors available via text no matter what, or no matter what time, and available via email. Um, but yeah, that availability is becoming nicer, which is one of those, silver linings in this crappy COVID situation, unfortunately.
I mean, it's not perfect. And I don't think like every group of people has the same level of access. But I think that the barrier to entry is getting less and less hard,
Yep, exactly.
um, which is progress, right? In the right
Yeah,
direction, at least.
yeah.
So,
So in your time with the therapist, second stint, uh, and then with your previous desire to be a psychologist for school, does your time with your therapist kind of make that psychology part of your brain still become active, or become more active? Do you kind of think about it more since you studied psychology for a little bit?
I think that, I mean, I don't know what she would say, but like, I feel like I come into these situations maybe understanding more, one from like previous sessions in context of having gone to therapy off and on throughout my life. Like I kind of know the gist of like what should be happening,
Mm-hmm.
that what should be happening and what works for me. um and I mean like yes and no to like I guess the psychological part of my brain, just because like I don't entirely understand like what that would mean per se, but like I think as you start working on things for yourself, like you just become more aware
Yeah,
of like your behaviors. And if like I guess at the crux of like psychology, like that is it, being aware of human behavior. So like in that way, yes. But I wouldn't say that I'm getting like I'm pulling out my like DSM like 7 and like, you know, flipping through the pages to like figure out what diagnosis I should give myself.
yeah. Not there yet. Not there yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So currently, you are working with a big name company, and you know what? I want to give you the floor to tell me what you do for work and who you work with, and because when I heard about this, whatever, with social media and whatnot, my mind slightly exploded. I was like, what? That's amazing. So Chloe, what is
Yeah.
it that you do for work?
I am a community manager for Facebook. I primarily work on Facebook app, which is essentially like the most meta way to say it is I work on Facebook's Facebook page. um, yeah, like it's kind of crazy. Like I I think the true testament to like kind of what we said earlier is like saying yes to opportunities, like believing you can do it. And like, not being afraid to ask for what you want and like kind of go for it has kind of got me here. Like I had a decent job in Eugene, Oregon, like was working for a really nice, like small marketing agency. They would have given me anything I wanted. They would let me do any kind of work I wanted. Like, I think pay wise, like I could have probably negotiated something really favorable had I decided to stay. Didn't want to do that. Went to an agency in Portland, was there for I think like 9 months. And in the time I was there was some fluctuation in like accounts and like whether or not like our team was gonna like stay intact or not. And that was enough to get me looking for like another gig. And somebody who used to work at that agency happened to get a job at Facebook. And then they pulled somebody else in to get a job at Facebook. And then this person was looking for somebody to work with them. And I just happened to ask the right person at that agency if they knew of anything and anybody hiring, and just, got right time, right place, right question, um, right set of skills to get me like through the door, and started working there like around this time last year. So it's been about a year at Facebook now. My role has drastically changed several times. Um, I went from being really executional and just kind of doing all these like nitty gritty tasks to managing vendor relationships to training people to running creative programs to working with our comms people to identify important messaging to working with the international teams. Like, I think, it's at its root, the job that I do is like I help a team of people moderate Facebook's Facebook page, and make sure that like the people we're featuring in our content feel safe, which is a really obviously hot topic right now.
Mm.
And is hard to do at scale, but like in our world, like that is what I primarily focus on, is trying to like have the best experience possible for the people who are involved in the things that we're marketing. So
God, just that's just amazing to see you step into that role after being a part of your college journey and just, all the jobs you had during that time as DJ radio host from KWVA, DJ Polaris. Welcome,
mhm.
welcome. And then just to see you, I think you, according to your LinkedIn, it said you were a junior community manager for a bit, and now you're stepped up. And what were you at all kind of starstruck when you got onto Facebook's campus, or what was that first few days like with Facebook?
I mean, yeah, like to be frank, I think that, coming from, it was like less than a year from when I left my job in Eugene to when I started my job at Facebook. Like, let's think about that. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, um, and I luckily I have some family down here in the Bay, so I was able to like crash with them, like while I figured out like where I was gonna stay while I was working down here. Um, but the first day, like busing into Menlo, like it's just kind of crazy. Like there's
Hmm.
so many people to go from a company of 15 to an organization of hundreds of thousands.
Mm.
It's just kind of like mind blowing, you know? Um, and just, the amount of stuff and things, like they have like 6 different restaurants. Like the campus is so big that they have like bikes that you just hop on and like ride around to get to your meetings. There's free food everywhere. Like they have micro kitchens where you can like there's on every third floor there is an espresso machine and a micro kitchen with all the snacks, foods and drinks you could like ever imagine.
God.
They provide training and classes for like things that you like anything you could ever want. They like provide training for it. They have like art screening and like printing rooms. They have free art classes. They have a music room where you can just go in and pick up instruments and jam. There's a barber shop. There's an arcade on
What?
campus.
Oh
There
man.
is a garden that's on top of two buildings spread out over like 6 blocks that you could just walk like in the middle of
Jeez.
the day. Like, it's just like it's insane
Yeah.
the amount of things they have there, and that's just one office. And so yeah, it was mind-blowing. it was a lot to take in the first couple of days, but
Yeah.
well worth it.
There you go. And so obviously shut down with that many people in the offices. I assume it got shut down as soon as COVID hit. How has it been working from home? And then have you been back to the office? Let's say pick up some supplies, and how does that empty office look?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was either Twitter or Google that went first. I think probably Twitter, and then it was us, and then it was Google. So like all the tech companies down here in SF like shut down fairly early. And then the city itself went on shutdown like fairly early when all of the COVID stuff hit. I think we were like pretty early March is
Mhm.
when everything shut down here. Um, I did go back right before they closed the office and got like my monitor and like all those things. And like, I don't know, I feel like it's been so long now that it's like we've onboarded people who have literally never met our coworkers in person. They've never been to the office. And it's just crazy to think that like they there are like months of experience that I had in this place, like these people who are gearing up to like be on like a similar timeline as me as far as like in office work. Like the amount of time that like they've worked out of office and we worked from home is like will be the same amount of time I actually worked in the office. And that just like blows my mind. Um but as far as like working from home, like Facebook has been amazing. Like they gave us all some like extra like cash to like set up our offices at home. Everybody got a portal. Like you can um you're able to order anything from like the tech store to like help you as long as it's in the database. Like they've sent out several surveys asking about like work from home preferences and like what the balance of work from home and work in the office should be when we finally do open up the offices. They've been really open about like the timeline of when things are going to happen and like how that'll work. And so um, I feel really grateful.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great that they're able to, obviously a company of that magnitude be able to help set you up, because my brother, he's kind of scrounging around to get his stuff set up because he's been working from home with everything going on. So it's a little tough when I hear that his company won't help him out. And I've been in the office since day one because they still deem me essential. Woohoo! And
Damn.
there are times where like I kind of wish I was working from home just like once a week, but it's like at the same time I do really enjoy that whole aspect of leaving the house and keeping that kind
Yeah.
of routine still on lockdown.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I do miss that. Like the actually having to get up and get dressed every morning.
Yeah, like looking fairly presentable other than like from the top up.
Yeah. It's weird. I feel like you don't realize how much of your life you spend like prepping for work and like winding down from work. So I think in that regard, it's been kind of nice to like
Mhm.
not have to do that. But I think it also makes it harder to like when you're working from home to like draw boundaries of like start and stop times.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So my last question for you, out of everything you've done in your career as pertaining to the journalism and communications field, marketing director, digital marketing, community manager for a little bit, it all has the same realm of people. We talked about this again earlier. People is what makes our business, move forward.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to you to connect with people, whether it is through work or just staying connected with family, staying connected with friends?
It's a good question. I think that, we're at our core, we're social animals.
Mhm.
Like humans, I think humans need people. Like there are several studies that lay out the effects of human behavior having a profound effect on things that like we didn't even realize they could. Like there are studies that talk about depression and anxiety, and like having a good support system and having a community can be effective in providing a purpose and like helping people recover much faster than if they're alienated and ostracized for things that are like out of their control. Same thing with addiction, right? Like there are studies of people in Portugal where the government helps integrate them back into society instead of labeling them as people who have taboos or issues, and like really makes them feel like they're part of a community, and they recover at much faster rates, and the actual like level of addiction and like drug usage in that like country is much lower in recent years than it has like ever been in decades past. And I think that that is just such a strong reminder of like the power of community
Mhm.
and the power of having people in your inner circle and feeling connected and loved. And I think that while sometimes social media and like journalism, like what I do, can feel like maybe the wrong people are getting connected to the wrong topics and places and things, that there's also a lot of good that comes from it. And Facebook's like core message is like we have the power to do more together than we ever could alone.
Hmm.
And I think that is like, despite all of the things that are happening throughout the company, like that byline is what makes me really excited to go to work.
Yeah, that's a great byline, by the way. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's you know you gotta find your people and get some stuff done.
Chloe Marie Shaughnessy, my God, I could talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. And whenever I'm in San Fran, I will obviously hit you up, and then well, obviously when I'm in San Fran and the world's back to being open, I'd love to see you. Love to spend time with you and actually give you a hug in person.
Yeah, I mean that would be great. Just at some point that would be really nice. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
Thank you for sticking around to the end of the interview. Do you have any follow-up questions for the guest? Throw them in the comments below, then I'll work to get them answered for you. If you like what you heard and you want to listen to more episodes, go ahead and follow Keoni Chats on Spotify and iTunes. If you want a video version, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. And if you want to stay connected when I'm not posting things, as far as blog posts or podcast, go ahead and follow us on Instagram, the KC Media 13 handle. And then you can also like and follow the Facebook page of Conluke Media, which is also KC Media. And if you want to become a guest, go ahead and message me those on those platforms. Or you can email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com. I'll get you scheduled. Let's connect. Let's have a chat. So until the next episode, everyone please take care.